Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. I'm being targeted for my views in America, but that is not what this video is about. This video is about immigration. And I would like to politely ask conservatives to please weigh in the comments. And I want you to share with us all your vision for America. Because when we're talking about immigration, we're talking about things that affect a great many things. We're talking about people from this nation, or that nation, and when they come here in their groups, they have certain effects on this country. They add to the economy. They increase the population, what have you. So my question to you is, to you conservatives, to you liberals, to everyone, is what is your vision for America? How do you believe things should be? I don't believe we have free speech at this time because of all the censorship at every turn. I see a lot of evidence that people are coerced, people are scared, the cost of living has gone up, the standard of living has gone down. People are afraid to say what they mean because they don't want to be blacklisted. They don't want to be canceled. They don't want to be censored. And cancel culture has everything to do with immigration. As they've canceled certain cultures, they set the stage for Donald Trump to not only be president, but for him to have his policies go relatively unchallenged. The Supreme Court is red. Congress is mostly red. What have you. So let's look at the existing model we have here. And let's ask ourselves, what kind of thinking makes it so the country is the way it is? And should we really be trying to conserve that thinking? We all know that corporations greatly influence both parties. We might disagree on how much they influence both parties, but we all must agree that they greatly influence both parties. And corporations want to conserve their wealth. So when it comes to economic policy, which is the most important issue for so many people, corporations are basically conservative. So what is the output of conservative thinking? Well, I call it the Luciferian model, right? Because it's like a fairy fantasy and it's a nightmare at the same time. They try to smooth it over with propaganda, right? You see Icy, McDonald's, Jack in the Box. You see various forms of imagery that are an attempt to smooth things over. We see various propaganda, right? The theater of war, movie theaters. Okay, a sort of ritual and madness for those of you who are aware about the deity Dionysus and how he connects to the fraternities, but that's a story for another day. Okay, but we see people disassociating as a result of a calculated effort, a corporate effort to get people to disassociate. And people are suffering. There's 700,000 people homeless in the streets. Over 100,000 children are among them, and 6,000 of them are totally on their own. There's people being deported. They're being abused. There's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes. They're being sexually coerced, sexually assaulted. There's a lot of horrible things going on behind the scenes. There always is. So let's look at the Luciferian model here. We see immorality and people persecuting people. They don't care who they are. The most righteous person that ever lived, they don't care. Single mother with kids, they don't care. Cancer patient, old person, they don't care. They persecute them. They counsel them. There's workplace bullying. There's bullying in schools. And it's the result of a certain conservative thinking that maintains the existing paradigm and the existing social orders. There's a sort of psychology that's based in that kind of fairy fantasy thinking. People talk about how they want their weddings to be a fairy tale. There's Disney. There's cartoons, and cartoons send a certain message, and it reinforces the existing culture. There's rampant child molestation. There are millions of rapes all over the world every year. And the West influences the world more than any other group. There are 700 million people in extreme poverty all over the world. 3.5 billion people in poverty in general. And that has a lot to do with foreign policy. Basically, every politician knows that. They argue foreign policy. How could they not know that foreign policy has a great, has an impact on foreign nations when they argue foreign policies in a way that reflects that they understand that? We see sexual sadism is rampant. Rape is an expression of sexual sadism. Corporate cultures that discuss how they have sexual power. It's sadistic to trample the poor and to make a quote-unquote killing in business in the name of greed and sexual power. There are marriages that are rather questionable, to say the least. There are abused females everywhere. Dating is controlled more than anyone cares to admit. Cancel culture extends into the dating sites, Tinder, Plenty of Fish, OkCupid, historically, you name it. There's a sort of mass mind control taking place, and that's a more controversial issue for another day. I deal in the facts, mind you. If you have any facts on that, please put in the comments. We have fake heroes all the time as part of the propaganda, part of the distraction, the misdirection. It's like they're doing a magic spell like Babylon in the Bible where they're misdirecting. There's poisoned food and bad air quality in more than one way. People have guilty consciences. There's unsafe cities. There's social barriers that must have come as a result of lunatics planning for them to be there. There's wicked governance, obviously. There's deliberate lying about religion. And all this sexual abuse is occurring in religious institutions. There's sadistic and illogical schools, right? When people learn in different ways, why don't they restructure the school for those who want to learn differently? Keep the same curriculum for those who don't and restructure for those who do. It's not very hard to solve the issues in regards to education. And they're spending all kinds of money on education and they're doing a bad job. They want to keep good people poor in this society. We see an effort to do that. That's why things are going the way they are. We see that the poor and the working class are exploited, Democrats and Republicans alike, and everyone else. We see that Social Security is threatened. We see cults everywhere, right? And Epstein and Keith Rainier, and they're springing up. These are the guys that they catch. How many guys haven't they caught? There's lots of sexual harassment everywhere. Human trafficking. Eugenics is taking place. We see the abortion policy reflects a certain vision that echoes the eugenicists of old in this country and abroad. There's rampant substance abuse. Hundreds of thousands of people dying from drug addiction over the years and substance abuse. And millions of people hooked on hard drugs. We see that people are in a state of denial as sadism, narcissism, psychopathy, sociopathy, and greed are just everywhere. We see gaslighting and obstructing justice. We see lots of psychological operations here and abroad. We see that people are ignoring the root causes. People are insincere, and I can go on, but I want to stick to the topic at hand. What are you afraid of when you think of immigrants coming here? Why don't we just make a region for them? Okay, for those who have no family here. And they stay in that region until we can figure out what to do with them. At least buy us some time instead of deporting them, and it costs us so much money. We could spend less on border security and more on creating a region for them. Why don't we do that? Why wouldn't we do that? Part of the reason why is very unfortunate here. Very unfortunate. Part of the reason why is that the Republican Party, and I'm not saying the Democratic Party is perfect. I don't consider myself a Democrat. I'm a liberal because I believe in individual rights, I have an open mind, what have you. But the Republican Party, for all intents and purposes, is a white supremacist party. For example, if neo-Nazis were to be 1/10 as racist as they are, okay, would they still be a racist organization? Yes, because of the associations, because of the racism that still would be there. If 20% of Republicans are fanatically racist, and all of them know that, and they're catering to them as their constituents, are they not catering to a racist demographic? Therefore, are they not a racist party? When the Jews were being put in concentration camps in Germany, were they afraid of a bunch of powerless homeless people from a different group that didn't like them? Were they afraid of Muslims in Germany, putting them in camps? Were they afraid of the racist majority? And while they're being abused by the racist majority, should they be pointing to Muslims? Or should they be pointing to the Jewish racism? Or should they look at the threat at hand and the major form of racism that's facing them? And so it is with racism in America that carries over to the immigration policy. Why do so many people get raped on the way here? It has to do with foreign policy. It has to do with the policy here. Why don't they just get on a flight? Why not spend that money that they spend being brought over here on an airplane ticket? Because your policy affected the process and has caused them to get raped. The people raping them aren't the only ones responsible. They have that opportunity to rape them with relative impunity because of your policy, which comes from the conservative governing class and the Republican Party that is best described as a white supremacist party with white supremacists on a spectrum. Now, one of the definitions I got in my research, and I've done a lot of research into this, as somebody with a college degree, the son of 2 doctors, my father's a brain surgeon, I'm his namesake, and I have other qualifications I don't want to get into this video because I don't want to distract you from this topic at hand. Okay, one of the definitions I've come across is that white supremacy occurs when white culture has more value than other cultures. Are conservatives trying to conserve white culture historically? Martin Luther King was killed in 1968. I was born in 81, a mere 13 years later. Think about what's happened in the last 13 years. That takes us back to 2012. That's not that long ago. So it wasn't that long after Martin Luther King was assassinated that I was born. And there's people here who are twice my age. So what are they trying to conserve? The historic system of white supremacy. I challenge them to a debate on whether white supremacy is best for white people. Racism creates ignorance. It creates evil. We've never seen any nation on the world exert racism in a way that's healthy, ever. It's never been done. So as you look at the history of racism, you look at the history of ignorance, to the history of race-based hate, you see that it fails. In your Bibles, those of you who are conservative Christians, it says the spirit is everything, the flesh means nothing. So why then are you trying to control what kind of flesh you have in your country? So you're therefore not just the party of white supremacy, you're the party of hypocrisy. And hypocrisy on such a deep level that it touches to your very soul. It affects how you worship and what you're worshiping. You know what you call somebody who's worshiping a god of white supremacy? A Satanist. A Luciferian, a demon, etc. So make no mistake, we see the comparison on the screen. There you have a black person who's sticking up for immigrants who are disproportionately Hispanic, wearing clothes from, that come from Chinese Kung Fu, maybe Tibet, they come from Kung Fu. One way or another, Asian. And a sword that is an American expression of a Japanese short sword. I'm biracial, in fact. I'm part black, part white, and ever so slightly Jewish. I'm not racist. What I recommend is universally fair. I have no racial imperative. But can the Republican Party say the same thing? Your racial imperative has blinded you to the fact that people have human rights, to the fact that you're deporting people without due process. And in my last video, I silenced like 5-6 Republicans at the same time who were saying things along the lines of, the asylum process doesn't apply to them. So you think that asylum should be for people in a foreign country who are trying to call the America or write them a letter while the people who are going to kill them are marching toward their house? And you think they should wait for America to process their application while they're getting beaten, shot, raped, imprisoned, and killed, etc. And/or. That's how you think the process should be. No, asylum is for people who flee a country and they're screaming help at the top of their lungs, so to speak, and they're saying, hey, process it in your court system. Which means they have the right to a fair trial, they have a right to due process, they have a right to have their application processed in a timely fashion that reflects human decency, dignity, that reflects God's law, that reflects the Constitution for those of you who are not religious. Martin Luther King said he wanted fair treatment where God's children are concerned. Without figuring out who is who, you're sending them away. And the Constitution is saying it doesn't matter who is who, in terms of law, that they have a right to due process. Therefore, there must be compensation for those undocumented immigrants who have been deported without their right to due process. And it's a walk in the park. It is very affordable for us to end homelessness, for us to have massive food programs, very affordable, especially when you restructure the school system and drastically lower the unemployment rate in the future, if that's part of the plan. It's very affordable for us to build a region for immigrants. So again, I ask you, what is your vision for this country? Is it morality and love and reality? Is it a country that eradicates child molestation to the best of its ability, eradicates rape to the best of its ability? Where everyone is fed and housed in the richest country in the world, where we can easily do things, where we can easily do that, where inmates get 3 hots in a cot in medical care. Is it trying to be as morally precise as you can be? Is it a country that promotes romantic justice and moral precision when dating? Is it the freedom to think one's own thoughts? Is it freedom of speech? Is it respect being assigned in a righteous way? Is it healthy food and air? Is it a clear conscience? Is it safe cities? No illogical social barriers? Is it righteous governance? Are people being honest about the things that matter most, including religion? We have a fair school system? Is that what it should be? Should we have a fair school system? Yes. Should we crack down on cults and corporate corruption? Should we have a massive global farm program? No psyops, no workplace bullying. Should we speed the cause of justice? Or should you obstruct justice like you've been doing? Should we have honest debates? Should we have a sound central committee on the left that makes it clear that all moral thinking must come from an attempt to be morally precise, which means not being part of a party that is a white supremacist party? Thank you.